Can you talk about their way of life? So like when you're doing fur trapping
Yeah,
with
so fur
your
trapping was an interesting experience. You basically what you do in October or something, you'll go out to your a hunting cabin, and you'll have like 3 hunting cabins. You'll go, you stock them with noodles or whatever it is, and then for the next couple months or however long, you'll go from one cabin. Usually the guys are just out there doing this on their own, so they'll go out and they'll go from one cabin, and each cabin will have 5 or 6 trap lines going out of it. Every day, it'll take a half a day to walk to the end of your trap line, open all the traps, and a half a day to get back. And they'll do that. So they'll spend a week at a cabin, open up all the traps, and then it'll take a day to hike over to the other cabin, go to that one, open up all those traps, and then like 3 weeks later or so, they'll end up back at the first cabin and then check all the traps. And so it's kind of that rhythm, and they'll do that for uh, a few months during the winter, and you're trapping sable. They're called sable, like pine marten is what we would have the equivalent of over here. And
what is it?
it's like a weasel, a furry little weasel, and they make coats out of it. And so when I went, he showed me how to open the trap, showed me the ropes, gave me a topographical map. There's one cabin, there's the other, and we parted ways for like 5 weeks. We did run into each other once in the middle there at a cabin, but other than that, you're just off by yourself, hoping to shoot a grouse or something to add to your noodles and make your meal better, or catch a fish, and then working really hard, trying not to get lost and stuff.
How do you get from one trapping location to the next?
That's funny because it was both basically by landmarks and feel. Like I didn't have a compass and things like that. So
By feel. Okay.
I got myself into trouble once, and the first time I went to one cabin, I got myself into trouble. First time I went to the other cabin, I nailed it, and so I had 2 different experiences on my first trip. But the one that I nailed it, I remember I had to go, and it's like a day hike. I was like, well, I know the cabin's south, and so if I just walk south, the sun should be on the left in the morning and right in front of me in the middle of the day, and by evening it should like end up at my right, and just kind of guess what time it is and follow along, and it takes all day, and I kid you not, I ended up like 100 yards from the cabin. I was like, whoa, this is the trail, and that's the cabin. Like, oh, amazing. And then the other time I went out, and I was heading over the mountains, and I thought, hours had passed. I probably had gotten slightly lost, and then I thought I was halfway there, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna sit down and cook some food, get a drink. I'm thirsty, so I sat down and went to start a fire, and my matches had gotten all wet because the snow had fallen on me and soaked me, and I didn't have them wrapped in plastic. I was like, oh no, so I can't drink water, so I was like, well, I'm just going to power through. I'm halfway there. Well, I kept hiking, and then I realized it was getting night, and then I realized I was at the halfway point because I saw this rock that I was like, oh no, that's the halfway point. I was like, I can't do this, and so I need to go get water. I ended up having to divert down the mountain and head to the water. I ended up, it was a whole ordeal. I had to take my skis off because I was going through an old forest fire burn, so they were all really close trees, but then the snow was like this deep, so I was just trudging through and just wishing a bear would eat me, get it over with. But I finally made it down to the water, chopped a hole through the ice, was able to take a sip.
So you're severely dehydrated,
And
exhausted,
cold, like, you feel sort of nervous. You're in over your head. And then I got down to the river, chopped a whole nice, drank it, hiked up the river, and eventually got to the other cabin. It was probably 3 a.m. or something.
So you chopped a hole in the ice to drink.
Get some water. Yeah,
This got to be like one of the worst days of your life.
It was a bad day for sure. I've had a few, but it was a bad day. And here's what was funny is I got to the cabin at like 3 a.m, and I should have brushed over a lot of the misery that I had felt. And I laid down. I was about to go to sleep, and then Europe charges in from the other way. I was like, "Whoa, dude, what are you doing?" And I was like, "How's it going?" He's like, "Oh, it sucks." And he laid down and just fell asleep. I fell asleep, and I was like, "Oh, that's funny. The last few weeks that we've been apart, who knows what he went through? Who knows why he was there at that time at night?" All just summarized, and it sucked. And we went to sleep, and the next morning we parted ways, and who knows what happened.
And you didn't really tell him.
Never knew. Neither of us said what happened. It's just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and he probably was through similar kinds of things.
Who knows? Yeah.
Like, what gave you strength in those in those hours when you're, just going through waist high snow,
Yeah,
all of that. You're laughing, but like that's hard.
yeah. You know that Russian phrase, "Глаза боятся, руки делают."
Eyes are afraid, hands do. I'm sure there's a poetic way to translate that.
Right. It's kind of like, just put one foot in front of the
Yeah.
other. When you think about what you have to do, it's really intimidating. But you just know if I just do it, if I just do it, if I just keep trudging, eventually I'll get there. And pretty soon you realize you'll have covered a couple kilometers. And so when you're really in it in those moments, I guess you're just putting your head down and getting through.
I've had similar moments. There's wisdom to that. Like just take it one step at a time.
One step at a time. I think that a lot, honestly. I tell myself that a lot when I'm about to do something really hard. Just, one step at a time. Just going to don't like sit there and think, oh, that's a long ways.
Yeah.
Just go. And then you'll look back and you covered a bunch of ground.
One of the things I've realized was helpful in the jungle, that was one of the biggest realizations for me, is like, it really sucks right now. But when I look back at the end of the day, I won't really remember exactly how much it sucked. I'll have a vague notion of it sucking, and I'll remember the good things. So being dehydrated, I'll remember drinking water. And I won't really remember the hours of feeling like shit.
That's absolutely true. It's so funny how like just awareness of that, having been through it and then being aware of it means next time you face it, you can be like, you know what? Once this is over, I'm going to look back on it. And it's going to be like that and nothing. And I'll actually laugh about it and think it's the thing I'll remember. I remember that story of that miserable day going down to the ice. And I can smile about it now. And now that I know that, I can be in a miserable position and realize that that's what the outcome will be once it's over. It's just going to be a story.
If you survive, though.
If you survive. And that can be